Hi, thanks for joining us. Did you know that 1 in 4 managers have never had management training? That's the 2021 Work Trend Index survey found this. And what they found that they're missing the internal self-development that's really, really relevant for leaders today.
Absolutely. And, I've always said that personal development is leadership development. And I remember myself being a newly promoted manager and just feeling really out of depth with how to cope, actually. And I think that actually led to eventually, amongst many things, but a burnout that I experienced and recovered from. And that's actually one of the reasons why I retrained. And this kind of brings us on to why we're even doing this blended learning, leadership and wellness retreat, and who are we? So I'll just quickly introduce myself. After moving from corporate back over to the UK, spent 8 years working in Dubai as group head of learning and development. I retrained in things that worked for me, which was NLP coaching, hypnotherapy, yoga, and I set up my business helping people running retreats. I've run lots of retreats, over 80 retreats. Ran a wellbeing festival, and now I help companies and mainly managers actually deal with complex people situations. How about yourself, Bibi? And
So it's
also
kind of
maybe a bit of a reminder of where we even met.
Yeah, I was going to say it was a natural sort of inclination towards each other because my background was obviously as head of HR and head of resourcing and career development for one of the law firms. And we met doing our coaching certification and our NLP master practitioner courses. So it kind of felt that it was just a coming together of the leadership and the wellness because we both found, as you said, when we became leaders, we didn't have that personal development side. We had some tactical stuff, we had some skills development in terms of technical training, but in terms of the real personal stuff, like how did we go from peer to manager and managing, the people that were our colleagues before? How did we recognize the expectations that were required of us? And we're both quite have got high integrity, and so therefore I think we overworked because we tried to over deliver, and we didn't recognize necessarily those signs where we needed to have a bit of self-care. We just kind of pushed and pushed
Yeah,
and pushed ourselves
yeah.
until it got to the point where we needed to do something differently. And I think that's kind of what brought us together, that we recognize there's nothing out there that shows or allows new leaders to learn how to take note internally about their own trigger points, their own areas of anxiety and stress, and how they can manage that so that they can be better themselves for the people that are around them as well as themselves.
Yeah, I remember I went out to explore NLP coaching for myself on a personal level, like you say, because that wasn't available. For example, I needed certain tools to help myself. And I think that's what you're saying there is a really good point in terms of what we're not doing as well and what we are doing in this program. It's not doubling up on what is already being carried out in the workplace. There's some
Mm,
amazing things happening there. But it's actually focusing on those tools and techniques that you've said, and also just being around other people, the like-minded energy, and optimizing the power of peer support as
yeah.
well, to not feel isolated, which I feel like a lot of new managers or future leaders can feel as well.
Mm. Yeah, you're right. I think people don't realize that it's not just them going through this, and bringing a group together so they can go through this journey together, share experiences, learn from each other, do group coaching as well as the wellness activities will really help them, one, in building a network, which, as we know, is fantastic as you develop through your career, but also just learning these techniques and sharing stories so that you realize that you're
Mm.
not alone.
Yeah, and it's something we've been talking about, and I think a lot of companies have been talking about the change really in the role of a leader. And the world is changing so fast. It's
Mm.
hard to keep up intellectually, emotionally, functionally, all these different areas. But self leadership, once you can manage, self regulate these kind of things, it really sets you up for those next steps.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. And agility, you mentioned agility there, and it's about decision making, that kind of agility, but also emotional agility. How do we face one situation and then have to sort of pivot quickly in the face of change? How do we deal with change? And we know that the environment has completely, progressed in that area of innovation and constant change. And we've got to make sure that we're set up as new leaders to deal with change fatigue, as it were. And that's what this course helps you to recognise and helps you to adapt to.
Yeah, and the other point to add to that is how to then build that culture within the workplace itself, and how to kind of spread that learning amongst your team and amongst the people that you work with, leading by example and developing a culture that is supportive of those wellness areas instead of building one of conflict, competition or negativity, but using friction as a positive tool
Yeah.
to drive change, as opposed to build an atmosphere that's not not an engaging place to work.
Yeah, and I don't think people necessarily know how to do that or can recognize it. They see that and then kind of like, walk away from it rather than actually tackle it. So, that's a really good point. And I think the areas, as trainers, as developers ourselves, we know what is needed for the role of a new leader. And so I think the tangible stuff will be done, as you said, within the corporate, will be done within the leadership training, but it's the intangible stuff that people just don't know how to deal with will, help future leaders deal with, managing potential burnout, managing conflict, managing change. So it's all these things that just don't get covered that we
Yeah,
relish, really, don't we, in terms of
yeah,
giving people
yeah.
the tools and techniques to be able to deal with, because it is life in the leadership role.
Yeah, and I think it's worth pointing out as well in terms of the practicalities of the program itself is something I've found when I've been on courses, especially ones that are a day or longer, is the time to assimilate the learning. We take those 2
Mm,
days that are just for the training. We make all these amazing notes and insights, but without having that pause to really understand and absorb what does that really mean.
yeah.
It just goes into the bank of information and it doesn't get applied. And one thing that we've decided to do with this retreat is give people that downtime, not just to assimilate the learning, but to have an opportunity that's carved out for them to just pause and be, to attend one of the wellness sessions that we've got going, or to go for a walk. It's one of the reasons why we've chosen a location that is more in tune with nature, to
Mm.
just take time out, and to have a little bit of optional choice, not back to back sessions, and some casual sessions to opt in or out of with peers and things like that.
Yeah, and I think we structured it in a way that allows people to learn, the theory of some of the techniques and the areas that we're looking at, put it into action as well, in real time with peers. But then, as you said, the reflection part is so important for people to actually think, okay, what works directly for me? And that's why it's a really, really personal program and retreat that we're doing, because, one size doesn't fit all, and we're allowing each participant to have that time to kind of work out what works best for them and then put it into implementation as well and action when they go back. And then we've got follow-up coaching sessions for people, so as they are actually implementing, they can actually contact us, have a few sessions, so that we're with them on that growth journey.
Yeah, it's tailoring it really, isn't it? It's, there'll be gaps during the actual retreat itself if people want some extra one-to-one support. That's available, and it's based on, like you say, this coaching element, so it's very practical.
Mm,
But also it's group coaching. So it's, rather than it being, a training and a workshop, it's really kind of interactive. It's listening, it's talking with each other. We're all in that together, and hopefully again passing that down through into their own workplace of
yeah.
how to hold discussions with their own teams.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I'm really, really excited, Nick, about this. And I hope that the participants are, whether you're, you're a manager already, whether you're within learning and development and you know people within your organisation that require some integral internal development and new leadership development as well, then
Yeah.
we'd love
Yeah.
to hear from you. Please reach out to either Nick or myself. We'll send the details out to you. Anything else
And
you want to add,
likewise,
Nick?
if you've been chatting to a friend and you can feel their pain or they're having struggles as well, just let them know that this is available. And as Bibi said, if you want to talk to either of us, please get in touch. We're happy to have a further chat to tell you a bit more about it, or you can reach out to the website, which we'll be posting in here, the leadershipwellnessretreat.com. And we'll be posting lots of bits leading up to it to get us all excited and ready. So thank you, everyone, for your time.
Hope to see you
Thank you,
again
Bibi.
soon. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.